Hello guys, this is me, the Tank, and next year. Today we're talking about the, oh boy, Burstyn Motorgeschutz. It is arguably the first Austrian tank, though at the time obviously it was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And today, I just want to talk about it because I think it is pretty interesting. It's not really World War One, it's before that, but who cares? So, starting with the unclear design specifics, the design was rather unclear in any specifics such as weight, armor, or the exact armament. It was described as a quick-firing gun, which at the time probably meant a 30 to 40 millimeter gun, maybe a 37. The vehicle was described to go 18 miles per hour on the road or 5 miles per hour off-road with 40 to 60 horsepower engine. So I'm guessing the armor and weight would probably be lower than 14 millimeters, maybe or lower than that. It would have a turret capable of rotating 300 degrees, as there would be a compartment behind it housing the driver. You can see that right here. Along with a single cannon, it would have 2 machine guns and viewing ports. It's not in this little image here. The commander and gunner would be in the turret, and the tank commander would also presumably man some guns, because, the gunner ain't doing that, and the driver ain't doing that. Onto the arms of the tank, which is honestly pretty interesting. So the key drawing part of the design were the arms in the back and front of the vehicle. Basically, they would be able to move and having wheels on the end, which would allow it to have such cross-country maneuverability. As you can see here, basically there's 2 sets of arms, one in the front, one in the back, and basically they would allow it to sort of cross these gaps and land, which obviously would have been very useful in World War One. It was meant to be this cross-country vehicle, and these legs could have done that, though I have a feeling that they'd be very off on in terms of they'd work and very situational. One of those things that when you practice it in a super clear, perfect environment, it totally works, but then when you get an actual battlefield, it's not really as efficient. Onto the actual history and origin of the concept. On March 15th, 1903, Austro-Hungarian engineer Gunther Burstyn went to the port city of Pola under the invitation of his cousin, who asked him to accompany him on a torpedo boat trip. I'm not sure if nowadays a cousin could just invite you to go on a naval trip, but at the time you apparently could. On the cruise, while seeing these awesome torpedo boats, you got the idea of, what if there's a torpedo boat on land? Basically an armored, gasoline-powered vehicle capable of going over trenches and through cross-country. He got even further motivation when, while doing an engineering course, Burstyn saw one of the original armored cars, the Austro-Daimler Panzer Automobile as seen above, which honestly is a pretty dope ass tank. Or not tank, armored car. Look at that baby. He liked his potential and motivated him to continue with his original idea. However, he did not like the idea of wheels, as it limited his cross-country capability. The replacement for wheels, though, soon came to Burstyn when he was stationed in Italy. There, he basically thought of a chain of metal plates, which he called a Gleitbander, which using Google Translate literally translates to sliding bands. He was totally unaware of the Holt tractors beginning to become widespread in American agricultural uses, which obviously have these track systems. But with his final piece of the puzzle thought of, he began designing the actual vehicle. It was patented in 1912, though I'm pretty sure he also had a 1911 patent. And he basically called this vehicle the Motorgeschutz, which was a term meaning motorized gun, and it had already been used previously. Motorgeschutz was sort of an all-around encompassing term for armored vehicles. And he basically sent his vehicle to the Austrian War Ministry. He did make a model. The Austrian War Office responded in January, basically saying that it had to be sent to the automotive sector of the army, even if it was... It didn't matter what it was. It could be to carry weapons or to house a weapon. No matter what it was, it would be sent to the automotive sector. So it was sent to the director there, and he said, based off of this opinion, the project in question is not suitable to form the subject of a trial at the expense of the Army administration. It is therefore requested to inform the proponent that the realization of his project cannot be done at the expense of the Army administration. And so his design was refused. The director was actually Lieutenant Colonel Robert Wolf. I don't have any pictures of him, so just here's some pictures of the Austro-Hungarian flag plus the patent, because let's be honest, the Austro-Hungarian flag is pretty dope. So the director was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Wolf, who didn't actually hate motorization. He even took part in the Motorgeschutz, I spelled that wrong, motivation with the Panzer Automobile. The reason was likely because the patent really wasn't specific, though. It was vague in almost all regards except for the actual arms of the vehicle, the cannon, the armor. It was all probably too vague for an actual military venture. After his design was also turned down by the German War Ministry, Burstyn tried to get public attention for the vehicle. Two positive reviews of the vehicle were published in technical magazines in 1912, including a very positive review by German Major Blumer. However, it was fruitless. Austro-Hungary would end up buying 60 Holt tractors in 1912 after surveying them, so they weren't against motorization, they were just against its idea, and sadly his design never ended up going anywhere. In 1924, though, Burstyn argued that the British did not invent the tank, saying, quote, "The claim that the Kampfwagen is an English invention, the term tank should be avoided, being a foreign word and technically incorrect, appears in the various newspapers and journals. This claim is completely wrong. The Kampfwagen, which is no more than an armored and equipped tracked vehicle, is less an invention as the armored car. This judgment was made by the authority in this area, the Patent Office, when I, in 1911, applied for a patent for the Kampfwagen. Back then I called it the Motorgeschutz. I had to revise my patent and could only patent the obstacle crossing device." This is actually true, his patent. The reason it's so specific was because he couldn't actually patent it because there were already patents for such an idea. And so, the only thing he could actually patent were the arms, which is why that was the main focus of the patent. On to the fate of Gunther Burstyn himself. Burstyn would keep an interest in tanks for the rest of his lifetime. He'd make several designs for the Austrian ministry and the Third German Reich when Austria was obviously absorbed, including a rather cool tank trap idea to see here. So a tank would sort of go up here, fall down, basically get trapped between these two things. I'm not sure how well it works. I think if you like cover these things with dirt, so it actually looks fake, I think it would actually work. This still seems to be something like a Viet Cong soldier would make, but it's actually a pretty cool idea. I'd honestly like to see those things in the battlefield. He would be awarded 2 War Merit Crosses for his efforts as well. However, in the end of the war in 1945, he ended up killing himself because he feared prosecution by the Soviet forces because they didn't like people who got awards from the Reich. I wonder why. 2 scale models were made of the vehicle, including one by Burstyn himself to present to the Austrian/German war ministries. One is currently at the Pioneer Museum in Klosterneuburg, Austria, and the other one in the Technische Museum in Vienna. In 2011, there's a temporary exhibition of Austrian war vehicles in the Heergeschichtliches Museum, Jesus Christ, where a model seen actually to the right, not above, sat in front. That model is now in the Panzer Museum, though there are a lot of Panzer museums, so I'm actually not sure which one because, there's a lot of Panzer museums. On to the final segments of the vehicle. The Burstyn Motorgeschutz was never really accomplished much, just like its designer, sadly. And is now really only a fun footnote in history when someone says, the British invented tanks. No, the Austrians did. But, let's pretend it would have made. I think it would have been okay. The armor would be really thin, meaning that it would probably be vulnerable to artillery, which would be a major thing to be facing. However, its speed on roads would be pretty incredible, and its speed cross-country would be standard for track vehicles at the time. In terms of combat use, I think it would definitely need to be used in a combination of at least infantry, probably some planes as well. I don't think you could just use this thing in an armored group alone. I think it needs some infantry accompanying it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and this is the Tank Index out. Sorry this video was so late.